All right, everybody, welcome in. Just want to do a quick video audio check. Make sure that you are seeing and hearing me okay. So just let me know in the comments, in the chat, wherever you're joining from, if you can see and hear me. And we are going to jump right in to our session for today, which is starting strong and what you really want to know when you are starting the next nursing school semester. Some of you might be in your very first semester of nursing school. And so I want to make sure that we cover what to expect today. And so, first of all, here's some things that we are going to go through. So, we're going to talk about time management, how to make sure that you have effective studying, maybe finding motivation when you're having challenges throughout the semester. We all can struggle from time to time with motivation. And then I did want to add just a little bit about clinical experience, how to kind of prep for your first clinical day. And then if you have any questions, I want to make sure that you get those questions asked and that you're able to clarify anything that you are unsure of. So first of all, let's go through time management. And I feel like this can be the hardest part, especially if you're in your first semester of nursing school. The reason why is nursing school is a lot busier than kind of your average, you know, major that you might go to school for. It's a lot busier than some of the other coursework that you might have. And so, what you really have to focus on is time management. The other thing that you have going on when you're back in school is some of you maybe work a job or several jobs. Some of you maybe have a family or other time commitments, like you're taking care of somebody. And those are some things that we want to talk about today. Now, someone said in the chat, hey, I'm confused. Where should I start? Let me know in the chat if you are in nursing school, if you're prepping for your NCLEX, and I can give you some guidance there. So the first thing that I want to talk about is how do we get organized? So number one, I want you to have a plan. And this plan is going to be based on your personal needs of what does your study day look like? I know for me, my work day looks a little bit different than the average person. For example, I start looking at my messages at 5 o'clock in the morning because I only have 7 hours in the workday. And then I look at messages again before I go to bed for a half an hour so I can wrap up my workday. It looks really different for every person, and that's okay that it looks different. How your school day might look and how your study day is going to look different. I highly encourage that each of you use a calendar. Don't just look at your syllabus and check it off as you go. That's fine to do, but you want to make sure you have a calendar. Now, I like to do a calendar two ways. Number one, I like to have a calendar on my phone. The calendar on my phone tells me everywhere I need to be 30 minutes before I need to be there. I'm going to get a notification that says, hey, you need to be here. Hey, you need to have this going on. And it helps me stay organized in that way. But what I'll show you in a moment is I also like to have a printed calendar, really straightforward of what I need to be doing when I need to be doing it. The other thing is I want you to set goals, because what happens is when you think long-term of becoming a nurse, you have all these stepping stones before that, right? So you have passing your NCLEX, you have all your nursing school classes, and kind of each spot along the journey, okay? And so what I really recommend that you do is I recommend that you start to set goals, because what happens is when you reach those goals, you start to feel motivated and like you can accomplish a lot more. And so I want you to feel motivated so that way you can really reach for that success. So here's that weekly calendar I was talking about. Anyone use this method? Okay, if you're studying for the NCLEX, we'll still go over some strategies that can be helpful for you. All right, anyone use a method like this calendar? This is what I love to use. You can change the times, obviously, to whatever your wake times are. Maybe you're a night shifter and you have different times that you like to study. But I would do something like this. And what I like to do is I like to every day put like, okay, here's when I'm waking up and getting ready. Here's when I'm then going to study. This is when I'm at clinical. This is when I have tests. And I like it to be color coded by course and whatever I'm doing. And so if you really struggle to find time, you're like, Rachel, I just don't have the time to study for my NCLEX, or I just don't have the time to study for my classes. I would find a version like our weekly calendar that we have here at Archer. I would find a version of it. You can find tons on Google. Print it and start filling it out. What you're going to notice is you do have study time. It's just finding the gaps that it happens. The other thing is sometimes studying is going to be less active. For example, maybe when I drive to, work every day, maybe during that time I can listen to a lecture or a podcast, or maybe when I am waiting at the doctor's office or waiting for class to start, I'm going to answer 5 practice questions. It can look very, very different depending where you're at in the journey. But finding that time can be really helpful. I often have students I work with saying, hey, I don't have any time. We fill out that table and we find that they have hours. It's just spread out and kind of at different times each day. And so it's harder to find it. And then once you figured out when you're going to study, you want to make sure that study time is really efficient. And so here's the thing. I could sit here 8 hours a day at my desk and accomplish nothing. I could sit here for 4 hours and accomplish tons of things. It's all about being motivated and being set up for success. And so number one, we want to make sure we have a clean and organized environment, right? Like I have my notepad right in front of me. I always have a couple pens right by my hand. I make sure that I have sticky notes where I can write them and I put them on my computer sometimes. I always have my water right next to me. So I have things that are always really close and kind of readily available. The other thing then that I do is I make sure that there's not distractions. For example, when I would study for nursing school, I had a baby. And so I would like do the laundry and I would have my baby and I would have all these things that I was trying to multitask and do at the same time. Sometimes distractions are going to happen. There's no way around that, right? I had to take care of my baby, my household, all of the different things. But there were times that people could help me. And so sometimes it was me accepting help. But the biggest distraction that I see for students today, this phone, right? We end up on TikTok, we end up on Instagram, whatever your social media is of choice, we end up distracted. And the problem is when we're on our phone, we aren't able to study as effectively because we end up spending an hour scrolling and we're like, where'd that hour go? And while we were just scrolling TikTok, we didn't get benefit out of it. We lost that study time. And so what I want you to start thinking of, how do you study effectively? And what can you do to make your study time more effective and more efficient? Number one, don't do too much at a time. How much time do you guys typically spend studying in one sitting? Let me know. How much time do you typically spend like studying in one setting? Or one sitting, I should say. Let me know in the chat. So Sarah does 1 to 3 hours. Tenzin does 2 hours. Yeah. Typically, we only want to do 45 to 50 minutes before we take a break and then come back to it. And so what happens is I sometimes have students who are doing 4, 5, 6, even 3 hours, 5 hours. Yeah, you're spending that time straight. You haven't got up. You haven't given your brain a break. And the problem is when you walk away from those 5-hour study sessions, I can guarantee you've lost a lot of that information. Research shows you really get the most out of the first 25 minutes of a study session. And so if that is the case, well, then we need to adjust how we are studying, right? We need to get it to where, okay, the first, 45 minutes I'm studying, then I take a 15-minute break and then I'm going back to it. Or maybe I'm taking a half-hour break. You want to make sure that you are studying in a way that's effective. And you know that by when you walk away from that session, what did you get out of it? Ask yourself that. Make sure you get started early. Do I have any procrastinators in the group? I procrastinate when I'm really stressed out about something. I've always been that way ever since I was a student. I have found ways to help with that so that I don't procrastinate it. But anyone procrastinate? Okay, a few of you are like, yes, that is me. I have some students that I'm working with right now that I teach at a community college I work at, and they said, hey, we study for our tests like the lunch before the exam happens. And I was like, oh my goodness, that is not ideal. Like that is not how we want to do this. And so it's just funny kind of hearing them talk. I'm like, this is not what we practice. I want you to get started early. And what you're going to find is it feels a lot less stressful. It feels a lot less heavy when you start early because your anxiety isn't going to get as high. And always reflect and adjust as you need. That's the beauty of nursing, is it is a learning journey. There's going to be times that you learn different ways to do things. And anyone ever lack motivation? You're trying to prep for this, you're trying to study, Anyone ever lack motivation, whether you're in nursing school or prepping for your NCLEX? Anyone at that point? Okay, I don't see too many people saying yes, but there might be times that you're like, Rachel, I am struggling. I don't feel super motivated. And what I always recommend is go back to your why. Why do you want this? So I think of my own journey. I'll share with you guys for a moment. I told you I had a baby in nursing school. My why was I needed to support my kiddo financially. I needed to be able to continue to provide for her. And so my why was my child at that time. Now my why is different. My family's in a different place. And so now my why is I love seeing you guys be successful. I love my favorite thing about what I get to do is I love seeing students pass their exam, especially when they faced more roadblocks than the average student. So a repeat test taker passing, someone who's graduated many years ago, someone who's international. Like I love seeing those challenging situations come together and working out for good. That's my why now. You guys are my why. And so think of what your why is, write it on a sticky note and put it on your computer. Now, I want to point this out because someone just talked about failing. Let's talk about it. When you have failed a test, maybe you failed your NCLEX, it can cause a lack of motivation. Here's what I want you to remember. You are not defined by the number of NCLEX or test attempts it takes you, that you are still capable, you are still worthy, you can still do this. And what I want you to remember is it does not say what type of nurse you're going to be. So what I want you to do, okay, is I want you to remember that this is part of the journey, but it's not the end of your journey and you can still get there. And so, typically what I have students do who come to Archers, they work with intense prep or they come in and they work with SurePass and then they work with a tutor. But what I would say is just know that you are not at the end. You can still get there. Guys, I've worked with students who pass on their 28th attempt when they come to Archer. I've worked with students who graduated 30 years ago. When I tell you that I have seen people overcome the impossible, I've seen them overcome the impossible time and time again. And so just know that if they can do it, you can do it. Yes, your journey is going to look different than theirs, but it is very possible. And so we want to make sure too, when we are studying, that we are utilizing effective study strategies. So you guys all know the main learning strategies, learning styles that are out there. There's visual, there's auditory, there's kinesthetic, there's a mix. But I want you in the chat to let me know, okay, what type of learner are you? Are you more visual? Are you more auditory? Are you more kinesthetic? Now, what I'll tell you is if you are kinesthetic, you need breaks more often. You are going to need to take a break from your, studying more often than those that are not kinesthetic. If you have ADHD, you're going to need breaks more often, and how you study is going to have to look different. And so I want you to be aware. For example, I am very visual and I'm auditory, but not to where I hear it. I'm auditory if I need to speak it. If I don't speak it, I'm not going to remember a single thing that I have studied. But I also have to see it because when I'm really stressed out, I can't remember words. But what I can remember is I can remember what something looked like. And so what you want to really do is you want to make sure that you continuously are studying in ways that work for you. Now, I will say none of you can get out of the Q bank, but what I do recommend is that I want you to talk through these concepts. The more you talk out loud, guys, I've worked with tens of thousands of nursing students at this point in my career. I don't even know how many, a lot. And what I encourage you to do is speak out loud through these concepts time and time again. Where I see a student be successful in their classes and on the NCLEX is they are able to verbally say the concept and explain it out loud. They're consistent in their studying. They show up even when it's hard. Those are the students that I continuously see are successful. And I want you to keep working toward that. It doesn't mean that you have to, get it all the first time. It just means the more you do that, the better. All right. And then active studying. What does this look like? Flashcards are great, but I don't love to write them all out. Okay. Flashcards are good, but I don't like to write them all out. And someone said, hey, what can I do? I failed on my third time at 85 questions. That tells me we have a big content gap. There's kind of three things that tell me a successful student. content knowledge, strategy, mindset. Those three things we got to improve on. I would highly encourage intense prep with Archer if that's kind of where you're at. But we want to make sure that when we're studying, we're doing it in ways that are active, not just passive. Pretty much anything we do can be done passively. And how we can make it active is we can work to talk through it out loud. We can explain it to someone else. We can take practice tests, but not just take the test and then say, okay, I missed it, I got it right. But why did I get it right? Why did I get it wrong? How could I get it right or wrong the next time? I love group studying if it's done effectively. There are times that group studying isn't my favorite. If you find that you are not able to, stay on track, stay focused, then I don't necessarily recommend group studying. But if you are able to stay on track, if you are able to stay focused, group studying can be great. Reading also is very, very passive. If you're just going through highlighting, super passive, you want to make sure that you are actually reading in a way that you're getting knowledge from it and walking away with knowledge from it. So let's kind of dive into these a little bit. Flashcards. Let's talk about the do's and don'ts of flashcards. I don't want you to write where the whole flashcard is just full of text. I see this all the time. If it's worth writing, it's worth reviewing. If it's worth reviewing, it's worth writing. That's the mindset I want you to go into. Don't just take notes to take them, but write them so that you are effective and that you have the information that you need, okay? Now, what I do like is that they're color-coded. So notice how on the sample flashcard, I'm drawn to the important things. I'm drawn to the differences of them because how it's color-coded. If I had wrote this all in the same text, it would have been a lot harder for me to find the information that I needed on the flashcard. Again, flashcards can take some time. I'm sure AI could help with flashcard creation. I'm sure that there are tons of resources out there that can make this quicker for you. So that way it doesn't take you as long as it did for me when I was a student writing them all out. There's also resources that have tons of flashcards, okay? Now, the next thing is writing flashcards effectively. You want to make sure you only have one concept per card. We don't want multiple concepts in one card because otherwise you're not going to be able to really say, hey, do I know this or do I not? And then the other thing is you want it to be organized. What's a way that you can go through and really understand it? Now, someone asked a question on the Q&A, do you guys have a feature for you to use to highlight important information? It's going to match that of the NCLEX. And so we have where you can, go through, you can cross out answers, which you actually can't do on the NCLEX, but it doesn't have a full highlight feature and you can't fully highlight on the NCLEX as of now. If it's changed, I'd love to hear it. But I always ask that question. I attend the NCSBN conference. We have one actually coming up next week. And we go through all the different things with the NCLEX exam. But what I encourage you guys to do is walk through what are the key points of this question. Make sure that you understand what it's asking you and then look at each option one at a time is kind of my best strategy there. The other thing with flashcards that can be helpful is adding some visuals, and then you want to group them into sets. The big thing is that are you reviewing them consistently enough to get the benefit out of them? So for example, what I would recommend doing is I would recommend making sure that when you go through, you can group them in a way that is going to logically make sense to where you're continuously improving your knowledge in those concepts. And then you might find, hey, I have a gap here. Well, then just make new flashcards. The goal is that you have these on the go, right? It's not like you're studying these all the time, but it's, hey, I'm waiting for my doctor appointment or I'm waiting for XYZ and you're on the go. These flashcards can be super duper helpful in those situations. The other thing is concept maps. Has anyone ever written a concept map before? Anyone ever done a concept map? Concept maps can be great. I always recommend handwriting these. I would not do a digital system. You're not going to get as much out of it. Always keep it color coded and only do it on the concepts that you're struggling with the most. These take the most amount of time. And so making sure that you're really doing it over the concepts that you are struggling with is going to make sure that you're getting the most high yield review for the time that you're spending. And then practice tests. doing practice tests. I recommend my students do them daily, even if it's just 10 questions a day, and then building yourself up depending on where you're at in the nursing journey can be really, really helpful. Because like I said earlier, content is just one piece of the puzzle. You have to have mindset. You absolutely have to have strategy to be successful. And so practicing these tests is going to help you develop that strategy. It's going to help you develop that mindset. And it's going to reinforce, do you have the content knowledge you need, or do you still need to grow where that content knowledge is at? And regular review. Again, time and time again, students who are consistent are the students that I see passing. Whether this is in nursing school, whether this is the NCLEX, and I think one of the big reasons why is they have more confidence around their knowledge. They have more confidence around the material that they are learning. And so what happens is when you learn something over time, you have improved retention. The problem when you don't learn it over time, when you just learn it in a short amount of time, is instead of your retention going up, now you've crammed it, you've just memorized it, and now you have a lack of understanding. So when that question is worded just a little bit different, okay, well, guess what? Now you can't apply the knowledge. Anyone ever felt like that? Like you can't apply the knowledge. You thought you had studied the concept, but now you get to the application and that's hard. Yeah, that shows us a gap. It shows us, hey, we need to work on understanding. Right now, we're too focused on memorizing. And then active note taking. Taking notes and rewriting notes, yes, this can help solidify information, but it is pretty passive. So what I want to make sure of is whenever you write notes that you're reviewing them. Remember, if it's worth writing, it's worth reviewing. If it's worth reviewing, it's worth writing. My favorite method is called a one-line method. It's if you miss a question, you categorize it by the areas of the test plan or whatever class you're in, and then you get one line. What was the key concept I missed in one line? The benefit of the one line is it keeps you from spending too much time on things that you maybe don't need, and teaches you to really focus on what you do need. All right, and our last big topic for today, we're going to talk about clinical as well, but finding motivation. When you understand what your goals are, you understand, hey, here's why I want to reach this, and you've got that environment that you need to set up success, it can help you really build that motivation, right? For example, I've got several kiddos. And so what helps me kind of have a kind of be set up for success is I have support with my kiddos. I have people that watch them while I work, right? They're at school, but they're at school while I'm working, and I have help sometimes with pickups or drop-offs, or if they don't have a school day. Think of that in your own environment. How can you have as much support as possible while you're prepping for this exam or while you're in nursing school? And that can be easier for some. Some of you aren't going to have as much support, and that can be challenging. But try to lean on the people that you do have or help find those supportive environments if they're not there. My biggest advice is celebrate the milestones. They might be really small, but celebrating milestones can really help motivate you. For example, if I would get my assignments done by Saturday, I would give myself the whole day of Sunday off to just spend with my family. But if I didn't get my assignments done by Saturday night, well, now I wasn't going to get the whole day Sunday. I kind of follow the same thing now. If I have extra work I didn't get done in the week, I do it on Saturdays and try to give myself Sunday where I'm off. But it doesn't always work. Sometimes I do have more work to get done. And so it's setting up these milestones. So it's like, okay, I accomplished this and now I'm going to reward myself. The other thing I love to do, and this is silly, but every week, if I've had like, this is an awesome week, I've really hit my goals I have this week, I go get a coffee. I pay way too much money, like $7 for a coffee. But it fuels my day and it helps me feel so accomplished, even though it's just a coffee, right? But we reward ourselves and that helps motivate us. And then if you're overwhelmed by something, break it into smaller steps. I shared with you guys earlier, I procrastinate if I'm overwhelmed by something. What I have found helps me the most is it doesn't matter what my motivation is that day. It doesn't matter where I'm at, but I'm going to be consistent. And when I'm overwhelmed, what I do is I just break it into small tasks. And I just think, how can I start on this and how can I get some progress? And once I start to make progress, I continuously make more and more progress. And then it doesn't feel so heavy anymore. It doesn't feel so big. And so keep working to make it into smaller steps. That's why at Archer we have study plans. It's not the goal is to pass the NCLEX. It's what do I need to get done today? And that fuels the long-term goal of passing the NCLEX. But if I just go in with, hey, my goal is to be an ICU nurse, right? That's where I started. Well, I had steps that had to get me there, and I had to break it into smaller steps. And here's just my general nursing school tips. And this is kind of for all nurses. Ask questions when you have them. Whether you are graduated, you are about to graduate, or you're just starting in nursing school, ask questions. The scariest thing, the most dangerous thing is a nurse that doesn't ask questions when they don't know. It is very, very dangerous for our patient if we're not asking those questions. And build a support system. Sometimes it's not family. Sometimes it's friends. Sometimes it's classmates. There is no friend like a nurse friend is something that our chief nursing officer, Morgan, says all the time. And she's so right. I think of my classmates I had in nursing school. We were really, really close during nursing school. Why? Because we needed support systems that knew what we were going through that could help us. We also have to stay flexible. There are going to be times as a nurse that things don't go right. I think it's like Nurse 101 that we have to be flexible. Things are going to shift and we have to be able to be adaptable to that situation. And then embrace feedback. If I were to say what I think the biggest challenge is for today's learner is that we struggle with feedback. And I struggle with feedback. So don't get me wrong. We can all struggle when we feel like we maybe didn't do something as good as we should have or as right as we should have. And so what we want to do is we want to embrace feedback, because here's the thing. Whenever I give my student feedback, or a student I'm working with, I give them feedback, it's because I want what is best for them. That feedback comes out of, I want them to reach their goals. And if they don't meet the stepping stones now, it's going to be harder for them. And so I want to continuously work to give that constructive feedback so that you are stronger as a nurse, that you are stronger when you get bedside. And so embrace the feedback and know that people generally are having good intent, and that's why they're giving you the feedback. Now, are you occasionally going to have people that aren't as kind or they're not effective in putting their feedback out there? Yes, but always assume positive intent. You're going to learn that you get so much more out of it. And lastly, become resilient. The reason this point is here is because I see so many nurses leave the bedside. I think the most recent stat I saw was up to 50% of new nurses leave the bedside within 2 years. I don't know about you guys, but that's alarming to me. We have so many nurses leaving the bedside. NCLEX cost is going up for the registration fee to $350 starting February. It's expensive. We've got nurses leaving the bedside. We want to make sure that we have those supportive systems, but that you also set yourself up for success as well. That's where it comes in of like, we need to have strong self-care. We need to make sure that we are ready for what do we do when things get hard? How do we make sure that we are taking care of ourselves when we're doing, something like taking care of 10 other people or sick people? And it's hard, right? It takes a strain on us as individuals. So what do we do in those situations that set us up for success? And I did want to give a few pieces of advice when it comes to clinical or even working as a new grad. Go in with a plan for your shift, but know that it's going to change. Work on that time management, work on managing, your care. But really with clinical, especially if it's your first one, you maybe don't know what to expect, and that's okay. It's okay to not know what to expect. Show up ready to learn, and always make sure you tell people on the floor, hey, I'm new to this, or I'm a student. I want to learn everything I can, every single thing I can. Okay. Let them know that they're going to bring you in. That's how I saw my first double fasciotomy. I was like, hey, I'm here today. I want to learn every single thing I can from every patient on this floor. I get these are my 2 patients, but I want to learn everything. I got to go in on a double fasciotomy. I got to see how the muscles move while the doctor was doing the bedside procedure. And it was incredible for me to learn. Take advantage of those learning opportunities every moment that you get. And if you have a question, let me know. Drop it in the chat. This week at Archer Review, we have several different small groups coming up. To find those, you can go to archerreview.com. You can go to our NCLEX. We've got small groups. We've got all kinds of things coming up for Archer this week, but you can scan this. It'll take you kind of to the website. But what questions do we have? Someone said, hey, I need your help. Can I ask a question? Feel free just to drop it in the chat. I want to make sure I answer these questions. And happy Monday to everyone. Next Monday, I won't be on, with it being the Labor Day holiday, we won't be doing a live next Monday, but typically every Monday, you can find me for sure on TikTok, and then it's a mix. Typically Jennifer or I are here on Zoom. Someone said, hey, I have the Archer videos in QBank of 3,000. Is that enough to pass? Absolutely. I see students pass every single day with our package. The best thing is to follow a study plan. If you're, a new grad, I recommend the 6-week. If you have already taken the NCLEX, you've been graduated for a while, I typically recommend doing, the 12-week. The SurePass and the Intense Prep are my favorite packages just because you're going to get that live interaction. But either or is incredible. All right, everybody. I hope you have an amazing Monday. Let me just make sure there's no other questions. I don't see any, but I hope you have a great Monday. We're rooting for each and every one of you, and I can't wait to have you join me in the nursing profession. If you ever need anything, you can always reach us at nursing@archerreview.com, and we are here to answer any and all questions that you guys might have. But good luck to you on your nursing journey, and I wish you all the best of